Travis went good, so let's finish up with Karen while I still have the picture in queue. Prior to 1991, the Mormon temple's endowment ceremony contained penalties for violation or exposure of the events that occurred within the temple. Technically, it was revealing the name, signs, and tokens of the Holy Melchizedek priesthood, because we have to pass by the angels who stand as sentinels. We don't want other heathens to know the secret passwords. And also, in the law of obedience, women were required to obey their husband. And so after 1991, it was changed to hearken unto the counsel of your husband, as he hearkens unto the counsel of the Father. And Nelson then changed it in 2019, so where you hearken unto God. Which, seriously? Wow. This is where Karen comes from. She was previously married, every good Mormon girl does, and was not given proper sex education, as all Mormons do, or don't. They don't get proper sex ed. And so there's lots of confusion. And so, for example, pornography. YouTube considers it a violation of community guidelines. No, it's a form of art. The Supreme Court has ruled on that. Sorry, you gotta back off. They won't. Neither will the church. Just like evangelical Christianity. Because it's just an idol. It has no power. But when you are led to believe it has power over men, then you start expanding it. Well, if an image of a woman can have power over men, and a woman themselves have power over men, maybe we need to fully engulf a woman in clothing to conceal her identity. Then you get Islam and all the mess that's going on there. Viva la liberté for the Iranian women. And I've of course got Wonder Woman from the first Wonder Woman movie, Gal Gadot, when she comes out of the trench because she's getting excuses about what they can't do as mortal men, and so she then is going to take care of it. And that just brings me to tears. And so when it begins, I break down into crying mode because I know what's coming, and so I can't watch it anymore. And so what you have is Mormon women who think that a man who marries them is going to be faithful and true only to them, in the sense of not looking at any other woman. That other women no longer exist. All other women are ugly. All other women are nothing to them. And I learned that I could marry any woman, technically, because there is no such thing as a soulmate. The concept is false. Yet that doesn't stop people from continuing to believe it, even after they get divorced. They then expand on the soulmate thing. Well, they were preparing me for this other person. You go with that. Whatever gets you through. That's again a result of poor sex education. Men and women are designed to perpetuate the species. That's how it's done. And so
cops are there and everything.
Yeah, we had an incident earlier on the day, and so Karen comes from this Mormon miseducation, misinformation, abusive, patriarchal, as it's being called by women, where Section 122.21 is unrighteous dominion. That's what it's all about. And yet, I saw it with my mom when she disagreed with my dad, and they needed to discuss it. They went up into their master bedroom, and we could hear them yelling at each other. And my mom always lost because my dad would pull the patriarchy card. She has to obey him. And that was his really only standing with my mom, because my mom went to college. She went to BYU, Idaho, and had known about working as a dental assistant. I'd grown up with my grandfather, her father, and so she had advantages over other women of her time period, and that gave her arrogance. But for Karen, she was more of the submissive, the being conquered and complying and conforming with the church. And I noticed it's usually the more stricter Mormons became stricter because of a big sin that they committed in their life. And so I enjoy young Sheldon because of this, because the mother in the show, you find out that, yeah, she had sex out of wedlock, and when she was 17, I think, and and got pregnant, and so the show is about her and her alt-right religious viewpoint, and so well done for the creator of the character for recognizing that character development that is necessary, because if they waffled on the character development, the show would have sucked. And so I have noticed that, and so I kind of wonder about my mom. But for Karen, yeah, I can see it as well, because she had gotten married young to her husband, and they had kids, and then divorce occurred. And because she's Mormon, and you need to understand, the church used to consider divorce a sin on both parties, not just one-sided. Both parties who get divorced are considered evil now, and shunning would occur in society here in Utah, and that I can see being the cause of it. But I also saw, as she kept trying to convince me that it was her fault, which is a clear indicator that she was a victim of abuse, blaming herself for what others had caused to her. And it was a challenge for me, because it created a greater role of responsibility, like Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility, in the sense that I needed to make sure not to overstep and trigger PTSD in her. And it's difficult because you're trying to get to know her. And unfortunately, with Karen, I found that the church had ordered and paid. I found the receipt for my being disappeared from society for 6 years of my life. And that was difficult. But that was near the end when things were starting to already fall apart because of the pressures she was getting from everyone around her. But we started off getting sealed in the Salt Lake Temple. We had to go through the process of getting approval from our previous spouses. Under Monson, it had changed so that I also had to get approval from my ex, which I don't recall. Well, yeah, our sealing was canceled with Stephanie. And so when she got remarried, I was not consulted as to how I felt about it, and did not give consent, or wasn't even asked, because our sealing was canceled prior to. Whereas typically those are only reserved for when a woman wants to get sealed to another guy, then they go through that process. And so if you didn't know, the church does not allow or does not accept the government's civil marriages. They don't allow other religions' marriages. They don't allow civil marriages. They are invalid in the eyes of the church. Likewise, the church does not acknowledge civil divorces and civil annulments. But they have no problem telling such couples, no touchy. But you're still sealed to that person, which means you're legally allowed, according to Jesus's law, Jesus's higher law, to continue touching after you're divorced or annulled. And that's what happened in Karen's case. But with Stephanie, she had filed for the divorce up in Canada, claiming that we'd been separated for a year, and was able to get it without my presence or consent. He had not even been consulted on the matter. And she, of course, somehow got a lawyer through the church and got that all taken care of. And so then the next year she filed for the cancellation of the sealing, and then I was asked for my feelings on the matter. And so I put, it was sad that she took our children away from me. It was sad that she left the country. It was sad that they're going to ask me about my feelings. I'll tell you my feelings. And so, yes, because of the serious nature of what she had done to me, it was instantly granted by President Gordon B. Hinckley, of whom later would have to approve of me being a church service missionary to redo the footnotes. And I don't know if any of you have caught it, as I keep referring to scriptures and refer back and forth to scriptures and such. Yeah, that's why I was put in to do that work. And because I was divorced, I had to get approved by Hinckley. And so I got the Jesus card. Jesus approved. Jesus is real. See, I was wrong. We're not Jewish. Jesus has replaced the Jewish Christ of Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon. It's now another testament of Jesus Christ. It's not Jewish prophetic messianic literature. And so that's also been a struggle, having deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. Karen wanted nothing to do with that and used that as an excuse to leave, saying she did not want her kids learning Hebrew. It was now her kids, not our kids. And so with Karen, It was something that she didn't know and didn't understand. Church doesn't teach it to you guys. I had to do it on my own, to seek it out, to do the research. And that separates me from the regular Mormon, is because I actually did the study. Whereas Mormons now have redefined study as reading. And I found in a manual that's where they got it from. The church service missionaries who wrote the manuals for Sunday school put it in there. So that's disturbing, because I know those people. And I was trying to prevent them from screwing up the footnotes. And even though I was in the top committee, other people still had oversight over our work, and kept certain things out, of which Nelson goes and botches at conference. And so, yes, I'm extremely knowledgeable in Mormonism and in Scripture because of the research I've done. And that tends to make Mormons unhappy. They don't like people who know more than them, even if it's a fellow Mormon. I don't understand it. They have no problem going to listen to somebody else who they think knows more than they do. But when I do videos, apparently all of a sudden I'm not supposed to be smarter than them. And the thing is that I know information that is not covered in the manuals, that are not properly footnoted in Scripture. And even though I try to explain it to them, Article of Faith number 8, the Bible's not translated correctly. I've translated the Bible correctly. I know the correct answer. No, you can't do. Only the prophet can know. And Karen came from that, where it was uncomfortable for her that I was knowing Scripture better than the prophets and being able to identify the errors that the prophets were making. And I had to keep it a low profile from Karen, because, you know, she would then think, oh no, I've married a heathen, he's trying to destroy the church. And she now will not communicate with me any more further because of that belief system that kicked in. She thinks I'm apostate and that I'm trying to destroy the church, even though I've shown her the evidence. She was a personal witness of the abuse that was done to me caused by the church, and she has to have the church true to have her sanity kept. And it's extremely frustrating in that type of a marriage where we're unequally yoked. And again, Nelson blew it in conference, saying that we are yoked to Jesus, when the concept is that Jesus is a supernatural entity and we're unworthy scum. And so being yoked to Jesus means we're unequally yoked to Jesus. But he's trying to claim that, oh no, Jesus makes up for our weaknesses, so that that's not how it works, Nelson. You're screwing up the analogy. And you're violating the Scripture on that. And just, I mean, and I haven't seen any critic talking about that. Just me. I'm the only one who got it, because I actually study the Scriptures. I know about this. And so, very frustrating in conference. I have to do it because I sacrifice my life to share with you that the church is evil. Sort of like the guys at Rick's College who were at the theater, who took R-rated movies and edited out the bad words and the beautiful pictures and the gory scenes. The sacrifice they made for us. If they can watch it, so can we. Let us watch. tamper with the copyright. And so, yeah, there's a Utah story of guys who were doing that for DVDs and got busted with teenage girls. And so, lots of problems when you have a Mormon who obeys and studies versus a Mormon who obeys but is reading and thus is not really obeying, but are creating new definitions to do the minimal amount required to coast through the church and consider themselves good Mormons, and claim that, well, I didn't tattoo my body, I don't go drinking, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke, I don't drink coffee, I stay away from women who have their shoulders exposed, like Wonder Woman. See, Wonder Woman's a heathen. I don't, what are women in the church going to do about Wonder Woman? We need to convert her to the church so that she can cover up her nakedness. She's already a role model for women. Leave her alone. Quit being an idol worshiper and demanding that others conform to your version of idolatry. And so, that was a problem with Karen, is that watching Rachel Maddow's show, she got jealous. Talking with other women in church because of the positions that I had, and I had up to 7 different callings in the church, in our ward there, and yeah, she got jealous. And I saw, as she got out of Relief Society meetings, that she was on a frenzy to change her life because of what they had said, that she was not interpreting correctly, or the teacher was purposely misleading the women about, as that is a likely scenario as well, because sometimes lessons aren't from a manual, at least back then in those days. I think now the church has learned we don't want Mormons to go off the cuff to give lessons. Just read it. And that was frustrating being a teacher in the church, is I was downtown all alone, and I was in Sunday school, and it was the Old Testament, and it was the flood story, and the teacher didn't show up that day, and the Sunday school president was saying, is there anybody who wants to teach or who knows how to teach? Oh, I'll do it. Easy breezy cover girl. And then they made me an official teacher, but I had to switch weeks with another person who knew nothing of the scriptures, and let alone the Old Testament. That's like Mormons' weakness and kryptonite. They don't know anything of the Old Testament. When, if you hadn't noticed, from Nephi visiting Joseph Smith, and you're saying, Nephi visited Joseph Smith? When? Where? Again, you're not listening to my videos, you're not reading the Joseph Smith papers to get the correct information. It's you call it Moroni visiting Nephi, or Joseph Smith. And Joseph tells us about being told of the prophecies of the latter days only from the Old Testament, except for Acts. Somehow he threw Acts in. I don't know why. Of course you would know why if you actually studied, because what Joseph Smith was doing was purposely putting you on a scripture chase to go to Acts to say, oh, it's a prophecy from the Old Testament. Where is it? I'll have to search and find it. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 15 through 18. And so I've got another video. I don't know if I'll get it to today or not, but I've covered it with you guys over and over and over again in different formats. That's our Christ, and it's not Jesus. And so that's also frustrating, because Karen has been fully indoctrinated into anti-Semitism, because the church keeps pushing Jesus. We're Christian, it's Jesus, Joseph is wrong. We have changed Joseph into a Christian, and that Jesus has now come to him in the first vision and told him the other Christian churches are wrong. You are the true Christian church now. I am the true Jesus of Mormonism. And even though Mormons go around saying, oh yeah, we believe in Jesus too, you're deceiving Christians, because Christians know it's not the same Jesus. But it's sad, as much as it's fun to mock, that Mormons have become anti-Semites, just like Christians are anti-Semites. They culturally appropriated the Jewish religion and Jewish scripture and changed them into something that they're not, turning Jesus, who was just a prophetic messianic character like the rest of scripture, and turned him into a real person from history in the Roman period. And that's anti-Semitic. You have replaced the Jewish Christ. And it's sad to know this information, to be married to somebody who refuses to even learn, refuses to even humble themselves, like the Book of Mormon tells us to do, to want to learn the truth. They keep believing the lie. And so I would show Karen the first vision, show Karen Joseph, or Nephi coming to Joseph Smith, show her from the Joseph Smith papers, and she can't. It's too mentally traumatic for her to come to the mental reality that the church is the great and abominable church, as described in the Book of Mormon. And so she violates the only law and commandment that there is, to love. She cannot love me because she is an anti-Semite. That the church made her, created her, turned her into an anti-Semite, just like Stephanie was when she says, my kids will not learn Hebrew. And that was a source of frustration, as the marriage would have been great, because it was great in the beginning, but as she came to learn that I knew more than her, similar to Stephanie, she didn't like that, because then she was starting to say, well, you now know more than the prophets. You don't know more than the prophets. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I did the work. They didn't do the work. I know more than they do. And a marriage cannot last when you are divided on what truth is, on what reality is. And so I understand, in the nation that is polarized politically between liberals and alt-right fascists that are seeking to overthrow America and turn it into a monarchy. You know, just like the Book of Mormon prophesies to warn us. The kingmen. See, because Mormons don't put the connection together. Because they turn the Book of Mormon into literal history, it's not a prophecy. Even though it is a type and shadow, it's not an actual type and shadow of overthrowing America and the Constitution to turn it into a monarchy, because the church is going to have religious freedom now. That's a good thing. But, yeah. very frustrating to do these videos, to remember my experiences in life with Karen and so forth. And so the number one video, in case anybody goes to my home or video page and then clicks on the one link that shows the most popular videos, and it'll list the most popular down to the least popular. That first one, number one video, that's almost 40,000, and I've now been frozen, was caused because of Karen. Karen learned that I was talking about the latter days because I found out about we were in the latter days with the signs in the heavens, with the announcement of the solar eclipse on 21st of August 2017, right before the election in 16. And so that sort of screwed up the book that I had published, saying that Hillary would win because of what Trump was doing. I didn't realize that we were in the latter days, otherwise I would have done the book differently. Probably would have postponed it until I had learned more on the subject matter, because that's what I was doing. I was now trying to cram in all of my knowledge and try to recall it, and then pursue pioneering research, because I'm the only one who knew of interpreting the signs in the heavens. And so again, Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. I knew the information. I knew nobody else did. I knew that I was responsible for sharing that information with the populace, or at least Mormons. And what do I get for it? Death threats, hate comments, assassination attempts. Yay. But yeah, we would talk about the latter days and the prophecies, and of course the Exodus that we were supposed to have in 2020. Sorry, because she wanted to know when it would occur, and we were just at the very beginning stages, and I didn't know then it was going to be in 2020. But yeah, I did that video, went over the signs that I knew of at the time, and she was telling me that she wanted to know because she didn't want to walk. And I can understand. I mean, we get told about the pioneers and how they suffered. I'm sure none of you want to suffer having to go back after Utah is destroyed, because that's the only way Mormons will leave to go back to Zion, is if Utah is destroyed. Because Nelson already told us this is Zion. There is no Zion elsewhere. And so that's the only way it's going to happen, is Nelson gets exposed as the false prophet from Revelation and Joseph Smith and that prophecy as well in Deuteronomy. Because after talking about the Christ, whom Joseph Smith says is a Mormon, he then talks about the false prophet and what will befall him. And again, it's weird because it's supposed to happen because it's prophesied to happen, and yet how is it going to happen? But doing the research over the years, you've seen me talk about how there's certain things that have happened that indicates that there is a deity above who's watching out and making sure things happen. And I'm going to have to trust in that to make sure this happens, because we're getting near to the end of the deadline for the fall of the great and abominable church, and it's concerning me. I don't like it when things get delayed to the last minute. I want to get it done immediately so I don't have to worry about it, so I can get other stuff done. But Karen was the one who caused me to do that video, and it became my #1 video. But it needs to be revised, as I did revise it a couple of times over as I learned more information over the years. And But that's the sad reality. I started into it, didn't get to it. We both had to get approval from our former spouses. Her husband, yeah, he had no problem. Yeah, great, good for you. Bye. He had remarried. He was trying to move on. She kept coming back to him. So finding out that she found another guy, great, let him deal with her. But with mine, I did tell you with Stephanie in the Stephanie video, but yeah, it was a situation where she sent a secret lie to the first presidency, trying to get me in trouble, to ruin my marriage. Even though she told the bishop she's happy for me, that I'm moving on with my life. Well, she's not happy. She sent a lie to the first presidency that I then had to show documented proof that she was lying. And in so doing, the first presidency expedited the approval of our sealing. And it ended up being October 1st, 2015. And we got room number 13. And that day we had our photos taken, and I found out not too long ago, I think it was the other month, I was going over the photos taken by her friend, who also was doing the photos. Our Relief Society president took photos, and she was the one who came to us and said, I made sure to get the full door in for you, because nobody gets the full door. And I altered the color here, didn't I? And so that's how I've known about the inverted pentagram, was from our wedding there. Because I didn't grow up in Utah. I'm not from Utah. I'm not a Utah Mormon. And Utah Mormons say, oh, okay, so you're a bad Mormon. They just can't stop with the abuse, can they? And this was from Mary Jane, who, I don't want to go into too much detail because she probably still teaches at a specific school, and you probably still know her or have taken a class by her. But she also, her friend got the whole door in as well, and I sent that to Karen in an email that even she got it. But I did learn from my experience in life how to give gifts. That's always been the struggle for me in marriages, as getting to know Karen at the beginning, there's the tendency for men to just give flowers, chocolates, roses, teddy bears. And yeah, many women like those, but it doesn't show that we as men know the woman. And I've come to learn that women are emotionally driven, so that they remember the first time we met because of the emotions that she had in that first meeting. And so as certain key dates that you go on, it helps the guy to show that he's likewise sharing those experiences with her. And so if the guy can give a gift to trigger that memory of a good time in their relationship, he's got it good. He will keep her love. Whereas you'll never hear the end of it if you just keep giving the same old thing, or if you've been giving the same old thing and you forget once. Like you get a rose every single day. All of a sudden you forget one day. Uh-oh. Now you don't love her anymore. Your marriage is in trouble. And so, yeah, if you can get her away from that kind of programmed thinking, give her gifts that help trigger her emotions from the past. And so for Karen, I learned her favorite song was by Andy Gibb. And so one of our first dates was downtown to the Genealogy Center, and we had our photo taken at that place where they take your photos. And so I did a photo collage video using that picture as well to the background of her favorite song, and gave that to her as an anniversary gift one time. And when we were going through our separation phase, I would hear her from her apartment listening to that song, or singing that song. And I went, she's thinking about me. And so she may not have recognized it. It was something subconscious that she was going through because of the memories that I helped trigger in her through that. So she helped me practice giving good gifts. That shows that I did love her. Yeah, it was interesting that again, I still have the other video to do to explain it, but just for full disclosure, our wedding feast was at the Lion House, next to the Beehive House, just so that you know. And I think very few of you are listening to this point, but yeah, there's a reason why I keep emphasizing certain scripture passages. I told you to make a checklist. I told you. But if you're going to be stuck on Jesus is our Christ, you're not going to understand, because you're going to impose the impossibility on candidates who come forward. So, for example, Brian David Mitchell thought he was the Christ, and Mormons all laugh and mock at him because they know he's not Jesus. They don't understand the concept of the Jewish Messiah. But you're supposed to be making a checklist and finding out who it is. You're supposed to be seeking the Christ. That's the commandment. It's the latter days. He's here. It's now. But where is he? You're waiting for Jesus. You're missing him. Because Jesus isn't real. And neither is any marriage that does not live in reality. And that's a big problem for other marriages in the church, because the divorce rate is acknowledged at 58%, but that does not factor in those who had been divorced but then got remarried. They sort of don't count those people. And so the number of people who've been divorced in the church is much higher. And that's sad, because it's a reflection on the church and their fruits. I did the video. That they're purposely sabotaging our marriages. That family proclamation just made things worse. Because women now think that they're entitled to stay at home, get fat and lazy. Or what is the song from Beauty and the Beast? Fat and lazy, an oops-a-daisy. I got it in there, but I can't quite get it. It's Cogsworth that I think is singing that song. But, yeah. So, anything else to bring up from marriages and the danger of Mormon marriages with Karen? I think that pretty much covers it. Is that Mormons have to be equally yoked. And so if one of you is brainwashed and indoctrinated into the church, you have to find somebody who's equally brainwashed and indoctrinated in the church. You cannot have two separate indoctrinated persons who interpret things differently. That won't work either. Sorry. You have to be brainwashed in the same thinking. And I saw with my parents, my dad was a Democrat and my mom was alt-right Republican. And so I realized, and my mom even pointed it out and joked to other people, she turned my dad into a Republican voter. And yeah, I saw it in the way he treated us as kids, from the earlier stages to later on. He became more conservative thinking in the way he treated us rather than liberal thinking. But not a good mix. But that's communication is essential, and it's difficult when the church gives different definitions for words that should not be given different definitions, like spiritual witness. Mormons refuse to understand anybody now. When I tell you that it has to be a physical manifestation, Mormons don't comprehend that. They think spiritual witness. I physically feel these feelings. It's the spiritual witness, and they won't go any further. So we're 47 minutes, so let's end it here.